This week on London Real, we have the movement artist and teacher, Ido Portal.
Principles much higher than technique. They produce techniques instantly. Yeah, so movement is not to be captured. You try to hug it, it disappears. Dancer, BJJ guy, they share so many similarities, but they don't realize, so they sit in separate tables. What is the prerequisite to attending an event or coming to learn? And one of my students came up with owning a body.
You told me last time, when you find a good teacher, then you should just learn from them, regardless of what they have to teach you.
I want wisdom. I want something else. You know, data, information, knowledge, wisdom.
London Real presents Ido Portal, Move or Die.
If you're going to be competitive, you're going to pay a price.
London Real Academy. Build the best you.
When I go in and look at a person or a business, I want to hear him talk about his dreams.
Am I living in alignment to the way I want to be living? And there's a feeling you get if you're not.
A community of action-oriented people that will keep you accountable to your goals. Sign up now for a free 30-day trial. London Real, sponsored by Bulletproof. Every now and then on London Real, I get to meet someone who's truly special. Someone who really causes a paradigm shift in the way I look at life. And this week, that man is Ido Portal. And he is a movement expert and teacher from Israel. I had the pleasure of meeting him a year ago, but after I filmed this episode, I spent 2 days with him at one of his movement experiences in London, and I was crawling around the floor like a lizard. I was ripping my skin open on the rings. I was at one point walking around a room with 60 people in silence, and then we engaged in almost a silent fighting art with each other. And it was one of the strangest experiences I've ever had, where I communicated with someone through my body and my body language. And it was something amazing and quite beautiful about it. And come Monday morning, I started looking at everything I was doing very differently. Why do I go to the gym and lift weights? Why do I punch the heavy bag in the same way? And it was almost like having a mild psychedelic awakening. And I messaged Ido and said, I think I'm starting to get it. Because Ido has developed or devoted his entire life to the study of movement. And if you're expecting the next hour and a half, 2 hours to be an explanation in detail of Ido's method, then you've come to the wrong place. Because Ido doesn't really break it down for it like that. He makes you work for it. He makes you research and really try things out for yourself in order to learn. And that's the way he teaches. And so if you're going to watch this, this is probably just the beginning of your journey when it comes to this piece. But I believe Ido is a special man. I hope he's going to be in my life for years to come. I have a lot to learn from him, and hopefully I can teach him a few things as well. So please sit back and relax and enjoy this episode. It's definitely one of my favorites, and hopefully just one in a series that I will tape with Ido over the years. And if you want even a little bit extra on top of this episode, come on over to the Academy. That's the London Real Academy, where we really have the essence of all of our premium content and our network of hardcore London Reelers. Included there is the Success Secrets from Ido, which is a clip only for our premium users. And also we have a whole social network that goes around the world. We just had a meetup in the studio with about 25 people, and the energy is absolutely amazing. We're all there making each other accountable and really trying to take ourselves to the next level. So come check that out. It is my passion. It is what I do these days. And it is really the essence of what we do on this show. So I hope to see you there. And now I will leave you with a very unique man indeed, and one to watch, and that is Mr. Ido Portal. London Reel Set Design by Timothy Olton. This is London Reel. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Ido Portal, who is a movement teacher from Haifa, Israel, who has studied capoeira, martial arts, gymnastics, yoga, circus, dance, and more in a pursuit of a movement culture that represents a paradigm shift in physicality, moving us away from culprits in movements like fitness, as well as from the separation between health, aesthetics, performance, and art. You have a worldwide following. You are here in the UK to teach a 2-day movement experience this weekend, which I'll be attending. Very excited about that. Millions of people have watched your videos on YouTube, showing your movement, describing your philosophy, and hundreds of thousands have watched us talk last time you were here on the show. Ido, welcome back to London Reel.
Thank you. Very good to be here.
It's nice to have you here. My girlfriend reminded me recently that I think I had an interview after our episode last year, and someone asked me if there was one guest on your show that you'd have to spend the rest of your life with on an island, who would it be? And I forgot what I said, but apparently it was you. So
Wow. I'm honored, man. You've had some amazing people here, so that speaks volumes, I think.
You know, it's great to have you back, and it's fascinating for me to always see kind of where you are, and I think probably a lot's changed with you in the last year. But I was wondering, you know, you travel all around the world. I know you've been to China, you go to Australia, the US, Europe, and I'm curious, when you're on the plane and there's that person sitting next to you, and after a few minutes they turn to you and say, you know, what do you do? What do you usually reply?
I directly say, I talk about movement. Yeah, I start with the explaining because it's going to take a while, so I just start it as soon as possible. And that, of course, pulls some other questions and, you know, requests for titles and definitions that are maybe more comprehensible. And that starts the conversation, yeah. And from there you can describe a little bit, yeah.
You said last time we were here, you said from the outside it's hard to tell what we're doing. And I remember you talking about one of the seminars you were going to do that weekend and how people come in thinking they're going to learn one thing and they come away with something else. And I was just wondering, from the outside, from what I see, what is it that you're doing?
Yeah, so we are, I'm in the business of taking certain terminologies and pulling them out of specialized fields and teaching people from other fields and other areas to use those terminologies and to belong or to associate or sometimes to de-associate from certain things. Since the movement umbrella is so big and it's relevant to anyone, you know, so sometimes people ask us, what is the prerequisite to attending an event or coming to learn? And one of my students came up with owning a body. So it's so relevant for everyone. It's more about teaching people why it's relevant for them as well, and less trying to find out whether it's relevant or not. It's always relevant. As long as you live in a body, you should be occupied with movement to a certain extent. And if you're not, it's going to come up on its own, like other things in our lives. But movement and the body is pretty big.
You said you went out searching to learn about movement when you were younger, and you found out that they weren't actually teaching you about movement, they were teaching you disciplines. And I was wondering what you meant by that.
Hey, it's a bit tricky. They were teaching me movement, but they were not teaching me the movement. Yeah, they were teaching me movement through disciplinary point of view and isolated, specific ways to look at certain movements. But nobody was talking in general terms. Now class is over and you find yourself still in a body but without any instruction, without any understanding of where to take how do I take this into my life. Okay, I'm doing a capoeira class, I'm doing a BJJ class, I'm doing some track and field, or I play basketball, but I don't stop being a mover and a human being, and I don't stop being in a body when class is over, when the practice is over, when the game is over. So the movement approach is talking about that layer.
Because you were pure capoeira for 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not only that I was pure, I was the known for the purity, the pure of the pure. You know, my nickname was the missionary. I was the one, you know, promoting the religion of capoeira. I was the most radical one, inside the club of radicals. So I wanted more, and it was first just different, some different aspects. I want, you know, to climb a wall, to go to the rock climbing wall. I want to experience with touching the floor with my knees. I spent 15 years of my life avoiding touching my knees to the floor or touching my butt to the floor. It was like almost painful experience, because it means you fell down. In capoeira, you dirty your clothes, you fell down. You don't touch these areas to the floor. And it's a taboo. So yeah, it was just like, I need these different things. And then I started to dive into all of these things. And first, I just allowed myself to do that together with capoeira, and started to bring in all these knowledge and ideas and understandings and try to inject them back into capoeira to promote and contribute to this amazing world that I believed was one of the best, you know, realities to experience and to practice in the best tribes and families. But little by little, it was just, like I said, it was too much. It could not contain it. The container was too small for this amount of ideas and information, and liquid was spilling out. And then I fought for a while with that until I realized I need a different container. And this container, it contains capoeira in itself, and that's why I don't feel I ever left it in many ways. I just, you know, it's a little bit like saying, yeah, you're not, now you're human, you're not capoeira anymore. No, it's a bigger container. I was always human. I was always moving. I just did it I loved capoeira and I experienced that, but there is more that I love to do. And it does not take away from capoeira. It does not stop that practice and many other practices.
And so what was next in your journey of movement or movement exploration?
Yeah, in the beginning it was a lot of research into weightlifting and strength work, to start to try to produce tools, better tools for developing capoeiristas. Myself and my students, I had hundreds of students, and I was the first one to basically take a kind of a box, a fitness kind of box, and combine it with a capoeira academy. It's still rare. It's still revolutionary in many ways around the world to do such a thing. And I was like doing cross training. My students were sprinting and doing weightlifting, you know, Olympic weightlifting and gymnastics work. And that started research into gymnastics, and that started research into yoga and into awareness and into ballet and into dance and improvisation and
Okay.
It just like...
When did you realize, okay, this is an Ido Portal movement? When did you realize, okay, this is something, and my name is going to be on there? Like you said, either way, it was going to be your name. And when did you realize that this is something that is me?
Actually, I did not realize it completely. It happened to me. I always talked about movement. And I remember vividly, like the early years where I was just like constantly saying, you know, anti-commercial, like just saying, we're doing just movement. And I actually kept doing that until today. But my students started to ask, what are you doing? To each other, asking each other, like, what are we doing? What is that? And people started to say, yeah, we're doing movement. And then what kind of movement? What is that? It's like Ido's stuff. And then I said, okay, maybe it's the least of the worst. Maybe it's better to put some name on it, to tag it, but still maintain the purity of the movement approach and call it movement practice versus calling it in some new name. And that's what happened. And just people made the choice for me. Eventually, they started to say Ido Portal method, Ido Portal movement method, Ido Portal movement practice. And even then, they started to use the word method. I was not completely satisfied with that, because a method is just one small thing inside of it. The perspective is more powerful, and it's a movement perspective, and later a movement culture that gathered around it. The method is just serving that bigger thing.
Is part of you hesitant to describe the movement in words because it's changing all the time? Or do you feel like if you write it all down in words of what we are, then you can't actually be what it is?
Words are not a good container for these ideas. Yeah, I'm not hesitant. I'm reluctant. It's not good enough. Movement is a cloud, and it's something that you cannot find its limit. It's a fog floating around, and it's not something that we can define so easily. What I do is I use what I call my slice and dice approach. I slice it and I dice it through multiple perspectives until I get the most tiny piece out of this slicing and dicing that I can observe and look at. But even that, of course, misses the point. It's just an attempt to map the cloud somehow, a little bit, to know something about it. Yeah, words are problematic. And like I said, we change words, we abuse them. If you're going to use movement for something else and you have a huge following, you abused my word.
Yeah.
And now I have to change my word because I don't want to be connected to that. So look at what happens to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, all of a sudden there was a separation there. Machado Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. They didn't want to belong anymore just under this big title of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. People took their word, which they in the beginning used, and abused it in their eyes or used it in other eyes. Yeah, so movement is not to be captured. You try to hug it, it disappears. You look at it you're zooming in too much, it disappears. You have to respect that. You have to be humble about it. And you have to embrace the concept, fade your eyes a little bit, peripheral vision, let it exist, let it feed you, work with it in a smarter way. Yeah, and there's been so many attempts to try to define it, but they're all failing miserably. So I pulled my hands from that.
I mean, just trying to write the description in the beginning for what you do, it took me a long time. And on your site, you've done an attempt to kind of put some words in it, but you can tell that you don't want to, and that makes sense. But from the outside, what we see YouTube videos, don't we? And we see not only yours talking and moving, and they're amazing to watch, but I also see a lot of your students doing, I think you call basic practice, which are, it seems to me, a certain number of moves that are, to anyone untrained, very impressive to watch, yet very simple. And is that a way you use to kind of introduce people to what you do, or is that a good way of describing what you do?
Not really.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah. It's not a basic practice. These are just basic patterns, specific basic patterns to the goal of getting stronger, for example. It's like one atom out of this whole cloud. And that's a choice that I made to collect these patterns and to put them together. They make sense to me, and I view them as very basic, linear ways to manipulate the body. But there is no basics to movement. Basics for what? What are you doing? You don't even know what you're doing. So how can you come up with basics for that? There is no basics. There is some basics that you choose for your kind of movement practice, your genuine, unique movement practice. And since people did not make that choice themselves, or were unwilling or unable, lack of knowledge, lack of whatever, I came up with some things and I introduce people to those things. But I still keep it very, very real, saying those are not basics of, everything. Those are just basics in relation to this practice, not to movement. Some movement practice. And it's very easy to support people around the world in their quest to do, for example, strength training or mobility work. So we start there, and it creates something. And from there, you know, they're becoming stronger, they're becoming more mobile, and then we can start to play. And then we can start to move into more advanced stuff. And we meet them usually by that point in time in person, and we start some real stuff going. So the online thing is just this basic layer preparing you for some movements later on. It will not prepare you for everything, because there is no basics for everything.
Talk to me about the tribe aspect, you know, of Ido Portal. And is part of that influence from the capoeira background? But it sounds like all the magic happens when you get people together, because you really get people to improvise and feel and, you know, move without thinking about moving. Is that what you're trying to get people to do?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. Yeah, it's not the tribe of Ido Portal, it's the movement culture. It's a tribe of movement. It will exist without me and after me, and be, you know, in many ways it existed before me. But maybe I was there to shine some light and say, hey, we belong together. We are more similar than different. Dancer, BJJ guy, they share so many similarities, but they don't realize. So they sit in separate tables. And I was the person coming in and say, come. Go into the floor, have a look at these patterns. Hey, have a look. It's almost the same. It's almost the same. Yeah, the goal is different, but so many different learning opportunities here. So that's the movement culture, and that's the tribe that gathers around it. And it's definitely my capoeira background put a lot of put in my head like the importance of community and tribe and practicing together and sharing it together, and collective knowledge, collective brains, collective everything, fashion. You know, it happens whether you like it or not. It starts, you know. Yeah, it's super important when you want to build something together. The personal practice is many times cannot lead very deep. We have collective knowledge. It's a huge jumping point. It's somebody who denies that. It's pretty hard to go deep these days. You have to embrace it. So as a culture, we produce body of knowledge and we research it together and we dive into it, we influence each other. And of course, some people are more, you know, in different points in this game, doing different roles, but without the culture, it's...
And everything you've built is built on collective knowledge.
Yes. Everything that anybody built, you know, I believe. There is very little new stuff these days, you know, genuinely new. Boom. Anything from spirituality to everything has been said in many ways, but not in the combinations that we are coming up with today. And, you know, like even the technologies are just like, yeah, you take this technology together, whoa. But really inventing the wheel again, it's a very hard thing to do.
You said that we're the original generalists, right? We're the generalists of all animals as humans. And yet so many of us go to specialize. And we accomplish so many great things as being specialists. But as a specialist, you almost rob yourself the beauty of being human. Am I kind of summarizing some of the things you say accurately that way?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We started to value specialists. We were able to save lives. We were able to grow our population and do incredible things, creating incredible things, and because of specialists and specialization. So it became promoted. It became the right thing to do. You know, what your mother wants you to do. You know, become a doctor.
Become a doctor, right?
Some specialist, some. And but we paid a certain price of living a more diverse, flexible, healthy life. You know, it's a little bit like also in movement, it's a very similar concept where many people come up to me and say, hey, you're training so many hours a day. I train 6, 8, 10 hours a day. So this is not healthy anymore. You're destroying your body. Well, if you look at it through the eyes of a specialist, definitely. If I'm doing BJJ for 8 hours a day, for sure. But the variety of practice that I do is so divided all across these joints and all across different qualities, softness, hardness, and complexity and simplicity, and all these things coming together, that it allows me to do a lot more and to live many different sensations, feelings, emotions, mind states. So this is the generalist perspective. And generalist may be a misleading word a little bit. It becomes, again, abused. And lately I've heard, I read a thesis by a dancer called Rasmus Olmeni. I really loved it. He sent it to me, and I really, really was influenced by what he was saying there. And he's basically talking about dancers, and he's saying, nowadays, to be a generalist dancer cannot be, doesn't exist, because there's so many types of dances. So what actually we became, and that corrected it in my mind, we became a fingerprint. From specialist to generalist to our own unique self, to our collection of things. Because we cannot be everything. It's not like I can be the hunter, the shaman, and the gatherer, and the builder. Now there is so many titles. You can't be everything, but you choose what you want to do, what you want to be. For example, you have a very unique combination of things. Yeah, you're interviewing people, but you're also doing all these weird other things that usually, traditionally, someone who does interviews, such a journalist, does not do. So that's a very unique fingerprint, Brian, bam. And that's what I'm moving towards with myself and with my students, is exposing them to a lot of general practices, but then saying one day, okay, it's time to choose.
Okay, so there is a choice to make.
There is a choice to make, because there is so much, there is too much. Collective knowledge is above and beyond what one person can take. But you'll be surprised at how much we can take still.
Right, okay. You talked about movement there. In the last year, can you remember that one day where you had, in your mind, the best day of movement for Ido Portal? And could you describe what that day was like? You said there's soft movements, there's hard movements, there's movements that make you feel this way or feel that way. Could you walk me through what that day might look like?
I can definitely not remember one day, because there are many. And it's a point of mine to live as many such days. And definitely, I remember many such occasions, and it's all about awareness. Yeah, it's about being aware, being present, and still being, in many other ways, quiet and allowing, and it happens to you. Yeah. Bruce Lee again. It does, it happens, it jumps, it hits, it moves, it's soft, it's hard. And those are the best days. It's just this sensation, and all the time this calm happiness underlying this, knowing that everything will be okay. You can't get injured in those days. It's very hard. You have to really do something extreme. You're aware, sensing, and and it's not about one thing. It's not about drinking a coffee, taking a stimulant, and lifting heavy weights, but you lose all of your sensitivity, or your heartbeat is too high. You can't sit down and talk clearly. It's about being good in everything. It's about being in a 0 point that is the same distance from all these things around you. I'm exactly in the center that allows me to touch everything in a very accessible way. Yeah, because I had very strong days. I had very mobile days. Sometimes the lazy days are very flexible days. The body is very flexible. But in a movement perspective, to be good in everything, it hints that you're standing in a neutral point.
And a day like that, will you go to the beach and do some movement? Will you go to the park and do some movement? Are you always moving? Are you always squatting or hanging? Or will you plan that day when you have 8 or 10 hours of movement? Like, where would you do that? Or do you always think, I'm going to have a ring and there's going to be some rings associated with that? Or how does that look?
I'm a lot outdoors because, first, because I love to be outdoors, because it's a very movement promoting thing. And second, because I don't find a lot of good indoor supporting, inspiring places to practice movement. There are some better places, but nothing really perfect. Yeah, and it's every day. It's every day. I'm out there. I don't even have, like rest days, I've had a rest day 1984, sometimes I tell my students, I don't really do any more rest days. It's like my rest days are still a lot of movement in some forms or another, but it's not a training session. It's not about like, now I'm training, now I'm stopping. It's all throughout the day. So in the end of the day, in front of the computer, working or whatever, I'll be on the floor, with the computer between my legs, and I'll move around, and I'll squat, and I'll kneel, and I'll change positions, and then, I'll stand up and I feel my back a little bit, so I'll do some spinal waves or some movement and mobilize certain areas. Just being aware of this, what I call the moved sensation, deprived of movement, It's like, I'm hungry, I need to eat. But people are not realizing that, I need to move now. Because if I don't move now, in a few more hours, it's going to become a problem. And in a few more years, it's going to become irreversible problem. So learning to recognize that and constantly shaking things up. And it takes a lot of time to build this awareness. Like maybe your back right now is screaming for certain movements, but you don't have the terminology yet, and you cannot recognize these sensations. Maybe your shoulder is calcifying as we speak, and you need to hang. You really need to hang, but you don't. Yeah, you have to develop you have to educate people about it.
Last time you were here, you looked around this place and you said, Brian, you need a place to hang. And I get really anxious if I don't train for, say, 48 hours. I mean, I can notice it in myself after so many years. I think when I was younger, I just didn't notice it, and I would just take it out emotionally on people. But a lot of people know that is, now I need to go to the gym for an hour and pay my personal trainer and then get back to work. Or maybe they even might play a game of football on the weekend and then go back to that position. You try to defeat that mentality. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. It's okay to do that, to live that, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I want to open people's eyes towards other alternatives. First, owning the body, taking responsibility. Stop handing the keys to someone else to drive that car around. Because ownership, like buying the vehicle, is part of ownership. If you cannot operate it, it's not really your car. You understand what I'm saying? If this car sits down there and you're waiting for your driver to take you around, it's like, you don't own the car. You might have paid for it. It's not yours. So the body is very similar to that, and we like to hand the keys and we don't have time for it and whatever. It's like, we can't afford that, and it creates so much suffering. It creates so many problems later down the path. And you're switching practices, and you're getting older. You're 30 or 40, now you have to switch your practices, because when I was 30 I did BJJ, but now my body, I'm 40, I need to do these different things. And when you're 50, you're doing yoga and this and that. And actually, you can always tailor yourself a perfect suit for yourself, fingerprint exactly what you want. But it takes education, it takes knowledge, and that's where you have to start. And it's not about doing a workout, it's about living a physical lifestyle, respecting the body that you live in, constantly addressing it, being aware of it, just as much as we address the psyche. And there, it's very, very immediate. Like, I'm unhappy, something starts to happen here. But the body is constantly unhappy. And we ignore it, we shove another cheeseburger, down the throat, and we don't move, and until it's way too late, And some people do the same thing with the psychic and, ignore signals and abuse, and the weekend warriors trying to resolve, years and years of stuff with a single dosage because they don't want to devote the time to and the thinking to that problem. They just want a quick fix, a microwaved meal. But it's never the same quality. It's never the same thing, and it doesn't hit us. And by the time it does, it can be too late. And then you'll be praying for all gods in existence that you will receive back 10% of what you had. It's like a moment after, it's...
When you look at the fitness industry, I mean, say in America, that's where I'm from, I always look over there first. Is that make you optimistic, or less so if you look at the way it's changed in the last couple of years? Are we going the opposite way of where we should when it comes to the way we look at physicality?
No, it makes me optimistic.
Okay.
Yeah. We are moving towards more movement. More and more movement. And sometimes we overdo it, we dive into certain things, but definitely we are moving towards more movement. People are moving more than before in the fitness industry. CrossFit, functional fitness, MMA getting bigger, white collar MMA. It's huge now. In Asia, you see a lot of it. This is good stuff. People are moving more instead of sitting on some pec deck machine, the calisthenics, the street workout, this urban gymnastics kind of phenomenon. It's great. People are moving more. It's not movement. It's just some movement, but it's better, and it's moving us towards that direction. And people need to climb up the ladder of memes to reach the higher meme. It's not, you cannot jump from Globo Gym to movement. It's too much. It's overwhelming. You don't understand what the fuck does that guy, even talking about. But when you go from Globo Gym into some functional training, into some CrossFit training, into some gymnastics training, and then you're starting to see the similarities, and you're starting to see the bigger picture, and then you start to relate yourself with something like maybe a movement practice. And it's pretty hard to come up with a bigger dogma when it relates to the body. That's why I chose it.
Because it's the biggest one out there.
It's the biggest one out there.
Perfect Ido style. So tomorrow morning, I'm walking in, and I'm going to be in your seminar for 2 days. And in true Ido form, you sent me an email and you said, Brian, it's full days, it has challenging moments, and it's long hours. So if you do it all, no half-ass visits. And you made me smile with that. And, and I would expect nothing less. What can I expect to happen to me tomorrow? Is it, are you trying to shift my paradigm and make me just think differently? But I know it's also very intense. So without divulging, what should I expect?
Paradigm shift. You are familiar with my some of the ideas, but it's about to put it into context, and that's very beneficial. Paradigm shift, meeting some demons, meeting some difficult moments, not too many. Some will come, some less. Meeting some injuries, discovering like, oh, there is a whole door here that is locked inside my house, like my right knee. Oh,
right. It's avoiding movement because it's worried about an injury, and that's changed the way I've moved my whole life. Or
man, that's more the kind of like that's a very common kind of chiropractors kind of breakdown. But I'm talking more about you can't do whole layers. You cannot practice beautiful practices because certain things have been neglected. It's not approachable. It's closed door. And you like most people, they don't have all this back reality. That acrobats and capoeiristas have.
Right.
This thing.
Right.
And I don't have fear from that.
Right.
I can go there. And this provides so many options. For example, in MMA, you see people like, you remember that moment where Rickson is being flipped over?
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
We
Pride
talked
fighting champions,
And you still see, nowadays, you see people like Conor McGregor, you see people, with a general better movement perspective and understanding, and the door is not locked. You want to flip me back there? No problem. It's familiar. It's known. And the options and the freedom that comes with it. And then the other side is realizing, oh, all this stuff is locked, and actually I'm missing a lot of freedom. I wasn't aware. So that is probably the thing. And there will be a lot of shifting mindsets. This is something I talk a lot. There is no one mindset. You're coming in to work hard, you'll be destroyed. You're coming in to be sensitive, soft, realizing things, you'll be destroyed. You need to be able to shift mindsets from moment to moment, because the subjects are so diverse. I give you something, and by the time you get comfortable with this toy, I take it away and I put another toy in your hand. And that brings it into the higher umbrella. You have to jump into the higher layer, which is movement, the movement layer, and understanding, wow, it's so many things. One moment I'll request certain sensitivities and very isolated, fragmented thing, and another moment is like I push you and you have to do something really hard and the skin rips or whatever. And you have to be able to shift these mindsets, because you're not a dancer, you're not a fighter, you're a mover. It's everything.
And you've worked on this process for many years and perfected it and seen the results and changed it around until it's something that works for you.
Yeah, improved it, perfected, not yet.
Tell me a bit about the people around you, you know, the close circle and then the bigger circle of the thousands of people that really spend their time learning, that fly around the world and going to your seminars. Like, what is the culture like?
A culture of hard workers, not a culture of talented people, first and foremost. Although many people would think from the outside, but they don't realize what goes into it, and they don't realize the starting point, and they don't realize how much hard work is there. We have a few talented people, but I don't need to take my shoes off to count them, really. A culture of very supportive community. Being stripped down into the beginner mindset so many times will do that to you. You're emphatic, you're supportive, you're helping others, because you suck all the time, because the toys are being switched around. So you cannot, you never, lay back on the laurels and I'm a black belt now. I reached a black belt. Now, there is no black belt here. Every week is a different white belt. So you're just constantly being very humble in your approach. A culture of people who are not very young, but not very old. We have a huge following from the ages of 30 up to the age of 50. And we have also people in their 20s, and we have also people in their 60s, but yeah, there is a big following there. It's a certain maturity that I guess this climbing the ladder of memes and ideas, and a certain maturity that comes about. Yeah, these are some of the characteristics.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of ethics. I educate a lot of people about being a student. What does it mean to be a student? And a lot of this is martial art ethics. I grew up on it. It's very important for me, and I think it's valuable if you want to be pushed by someone to areas, and you want to be helped by someone into areas that are completely concealed to you. So you have to lean back into it and allow that person to take you on a journey, because you don't see where it's going. You have no idea, especially in a movement practice. You have no idea where it's going. So you have to trust, you have to respect and honor that. It's a gift that you can never return. I can never return the gifts that I received from my teachers. It's something that would never be answered.
You told me last time, when you find a good teacher, then you should just learn from them regardless of what they have to teach you.
True. I believe in that. People don't like to hear it, but it's very true. And I've had this many times. Met people, and maybe the knee-jerk reflex was like, I don't even want to learn this, but something about that person, something maybe it can be conceptualized into, oh, this person is so special, I admire him so much. He must know something more than what I'm seeing right now. So I'm going to go with what he has to teach me here. And I'm going to trust.
Do you get to meet those people anymore? I mean, you're running around the world teaching everybody. Everyone's looking to Ido. How can you ever find your teachers?
I make it a point. I go and seek new teachers, and I meet some of my old teachers, not all of them, but some of them I'm in good contact with. It's important to have teachers for me still. I travel all around the world and looking for pieces of information. Sometimes it's not about finding a teacher, it's about finding pieces of information through some person. But at other times, I'm more interested in finding teachers. It's rare, but it is more than just information. Yeah, there is the information brokers and there is the teachers, something else. It's not about, I don't just want the information that you have. I want wisdom. I want something else. You know, data, information, knowledge, wisdom. Okay, data I can find alone. I'll open my phone, you know. Information is a bit higher level already, certain filters on the data. And then you have knowledge, what you know. And then wisdom, how to act upon this knowledge, and, you know, and it's kind of, some of the definitions are intersecting.
You know, you've said something about information in the past, and on my TED Talk that I gave, I said research is procrastination in disguise. And you once said information is toxic and it's addictive. We run after it, we have this thirst for it, but at a certain point it turns on you, it paralyzes you and freezes you, and it doesn't allow you to apply and learn, and it's no longer a contributing factor for your development. Do you still believe?
Yeah. And more, the more time passes, the more I believe in that, because of this crazy era of misinformation. It's not the era of information. It became the era of misinformation. And the new game is how to find good information. And it's much more tricky, because now it's hiding in piles and piles of, you know, disguising material, disgusting and disguising. It's very hard. Then maybe this should be the new kind of direction that we take our education system, teaching our children how to find the better information and not how to find information per se. Many years ago, you had to learn how to go to the library, do research, find any information about the subject, you're good. Nowadays, it's open Google, everything is there. So how do you know what's good and what's bad? And that's the new game. Everybody can say a right thing, but very few people can say the right thing.
You said you hate and you won't train with vegans at one point. People jumped onto that. Do you still get asked about that?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, some of my vegan students, they love this. They are priding themselves,
right,
you know, as being the only vegans, but they don't know there's so many other vegans in there.
So it worked.
It worked.
It engaged them in a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, any kind of conversation or publicity or talk, and yeah. They still don't impress me at all, you know, like, you know, sometimes people bring me this, you know, anecdote. Look at this crazy guy, he's vegan, you know. So what? I had in the military a guy with me who used to smoke, you know, 2 packs a day of cigarettes and used to run 2K in under 6 minutes. So what? What do I learn from it? That, you know, this guy or that guy is doing this or that. It's, as a community, I meet a lot of people with different practices, and I allow myself, as a human being, to have my judgments and to have my ideas and to agree, to disagree, to see beyond what they're presenting and into the reality, etc. And definitely I'm not impressed, you know. And I know there are amazing movers. Some of my students are vegans and they're doing great. But I see more that are not doing great.
And in general, you're still not impressed with vegans?
Not impressed at all.
And you said last time they're one of the most hostile communities in the world.
Yeah, which is great to engage in conversation, you know, or at least in a war, if not in conversation.
And they fight back as well?
Yeah.
Okay. But you get along with the CrossFitters?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay. Didn't always, but these days you do?
No. I was always supportive of CrossFit and loved it and for what it is. It took a different route, and, you know, like we've kind of drifted apart, but I still definitely support a lot of their work, and I enjoy a lot of the stuff. Everybody eats off the breadcrumbs of CrossFit, and we've talked about it last time. They're creating a lot of stuff. You can buy a pair of rings these days, because of them, in $30. When I bought my first pair of rings, it was $270. So they're doing a lot of great stuff. And it's starting to take different shapes, and the practice and the culture starts to take all these different, perspectives, and people start to realize that there are prices to the CrossFit game, and to pushing hard in these specific areas. Also, not to be confused with movement practice, and many would say not to be confused with fitness, with being fit, but definitely movement practice, not to be confused. Being the game winner in CrossFit doesn't mean shit about the movement practice, and I've seen it many times. Like you will lack so many different. Movement practice can be dictated by your sensitivity, kinesthetic awareness, all kinds of small combinations of traits that have nothing to do, zero, vice versa, the opposite, with CrossFit training.
Right, so just because you're a great CrossFitter doesn't mean you're a good mover. Because you might be able to bust out the workout of the day and do your, kipping pull-ups and your deadlifts, but that doesn't mean that you can
do a lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Crawl across the room. What's that crawl that you do? And am I going to learn that this weekend?
Yeah, we'll play with that.
Okay. What's it called?
I think you're referring to the lizard crawl.
Yeah, lizard crawl. Okay. So is that a good example of a movement?
That's a good example of a movement that will be difficult because of range of motion, thoracic, spine mobility, that will be limited in most of the cases. But it's much more human than that. Like squat down and wait for the bus for 30 minutes. A CrossFitter with 250 kilogram back squat might not be able to do that, to rest in the squat for 30 minutes, because the body is being made too specialized to lift heavy loads in the squat. But that's not the original intention behind this position. It's a resting position. You're using it to collect berries, to wait for someone, to eat, to shit. And this is a very basic human layer. Yeah, we have toilets, but if we go on the toilet for too long and we forget to squat, we pay with knee pains, we pay with ankle problems, we pay with digestion issues, because we need that folding of the body to fold it every day. So this is just small examples. It's infinite. You have to remain humble. These practices are not about movement. The dogma is different. It's about building a very specific engine for very specific tasks. What about all the organic movements? What about this movement? It's very beneficial. But it cannot be conceptualized inside CrossFit because it cannot be measured. Right? It's not loaded. But maybe it's the best thing that you need right now to heal certain area in your body or to solve a certain kinetic puzzle, some riddle of movement that life throws at you. Getting strong, yeah, you get strong. You have some balance. You're doing some tricks. You're running. There is a lot of good stuff in CrossFit. It's not about movement. It's about CrossFit.
We talked about Dorian Yates earlier, and you've said that aesthetics is reverse engineering the body. And when I see Dorian Yates, and he was here just a few weeks ago, he seems as like such a polar opposite athlete to you or person to you, but yet you respect what he's done. But what he did was obviously build an aesthetic mass by doing physical practices. What comes to mind when you think about bodybuilding or, fitness models?
Yeah, I was there, I was there many years ago. I was doing the thing, I was 82 kilograms, huge, like maybe, 17 kilograms more than now. Wow, very big. Over 30 pounds, I have all the ripped skin, in the back, in the arms to show for it. I was there, I was doing it, I was following people like Dorian in the 90s and stuff. I was lifting, I was doing it, but it was leaving me very empty. Eventually I realized it was motivating me, I did the whole thing, but the awareness was leaking. And I love Dorian because of his mindset. It can be something completely opposite to what you're doing, but his approach, the way of doing things that I appreciate. And one last thing about it. Where is all that mess nowadays? Where is it? It's gone. So what is left? Ideas, awareness that you developed in that practice, and maybe it didn't develop much because it's bodybuilding versus superior practices for developing awareness and understanding and relationship with the body. Stuff that will last you a lifetime. Actually, nowadays, Dorian is doing yoga and climbing up those mountains and hiking. He's doing movement these days. He's doing movement practice. He's living in a smaller body because it's more economic and sustainable. And he's preparing himself for more awareness, and he's more aware. So I love his example and his fire, and what he did in bodybuilding is amazing. And I appreciate him coming on and talking about other things, because it might be a risk. It might be dangerous for him. Maybe people don't want to hear it. Maybe people just want to hear about the gold old days, and babbling on about that and the stories, the Arnold stories, and, all this, pumping iron for the millionth times. And you know what? Doesn't do it for me anymore. And I had to stay real with that and continue to develop myself and find the same fire I had for those things, but in a more deeper level, sustainable level, into older age, and still maintain certain aesthetics, which I believe are very important for our image, for the way that we move. They're connected with who we are. We're not just a brain, we're not just a body, we're also an image of the way that we look, etc.
Right.
This is part.
So aesthetics aren't unimportant. There is a place for them.
Yeah, I never said they are unimportant.
Okay.
It's the people who want to take the black and white thing and present it as a, gimmick. I never said that. I said just aspiring for aesthetics is reverse engineering. You are aspiring for those aesthetics because it hints of a movement functionality. Oh, that body can fight, can move, can climb, can push, can pull. But actually, not necessarily. In Dorian's case, he was still one of the last, strong bodybuilders. He was deadlifting some serious weights. He was pushing around some serious iron. But even that is just a small perspective of movement, It might be a certain, relaxation that allows you to throw the arm in speed and hit someone more efficiently versus contraction.
Yeah, I just made me think of martial arts when you threw that punch out there, and and like you said, it's this movement pattern that it can't be quantified, and so a lot of times it's not practiced by by certain pieces, and if there's no aesthetic component, then it's what is it? So, and that's your land. And what is your path now? Like, what is your next few months like, and what do you wake up looking to do? Is it grow as fast as possible? Is it get the message to as most people or the right people, or is it for you to learn?
I'm still trying to create my practice physically and trying to bring together a lot of these elements that I want to be together. Like I said, I will never be the polyvalent mover, the one who can do everything, because it's impossible. So I am trying to figure out what I can do. What is the size of my skill set? And that's what I'm recently working on, just fortifying that, exploring that, researching that. At the same time, I'm continuing to support my students and work with closer and closer relationship with the students. I'm looking to increase the general pool that is feeding into the movement culture, and then destroy and decrease it. Increase and destroy and purifying by doing that. A lot of people come in from the wrong reasons. Like if I take my shirt off, some people will come because of the six packs or the look of my body, or some of my students who are, beautiful bodies, incredible movers. It's the wrong reason to be there, and it will fail down the path. You will not be able to sustain a movement practice around that. So yeah, just doing that and getting more and more quality in our crowd, and little by little growing that crowd. But nothing huge, viral, because I'm aware of how it feels to run such a community. I've been there. I went there. I saw what's coming. I looked out of my window. It's not fun. I don't want to be there.
You could see all the people wanting to come in. Is that what you mean by
I see. Yeah, I saw the messes. I saw the so many different mindsets coming in and the wrong reasons. And you can't do much with it. You cannot. It's not fun. It's not interesting for me. It's not. It's not what I want to cultivate. It's not my mindset, and it's not the movement perspective that I want to support so well. It's pulling you. You know, it changes. You try to change the world, and the world changes you as well. It's a constant relationship. You put something in people's minds and they distort it. And I can say very honestly that my work has been distorted in many ways. Like most people don't know. Many of my closest students, they would say things, you know, like I'm hiding, you know, like, oh shit, you know, I'm ashamed to hear.
Like,
because
like what?
They'll be asked in some interview somewhere, you know, about the approach and the practice, and some of them will just copy paste. And I prefer that they do that, you know, properly. And some of them will say things that are, you know, showing their true intentions, which are sometimes misguided in my eyes. They're not really movement aligned. They're a different dogma, and or present something that is, you know, not my style of doing things. And I'm just a simple person. I love my style, and I don't try to, you know, I don't try to be everything and to be able to contain everything. I don't like kitsch. I don't like the mannerism. But when you run a big community, a fair amount of it comes in the door. Inspirational clips, and some of them with me. You know, I was part of them, but the end product I don't feel connected to sometimes. And yeah, I think I like Dorian because of this sense of rugged piece of reality. It's like a small, you know, you walk on the street and you bang your foot into this lamp and it's a bit rusty, but it's beautiful, you know. It's not this shiny fake thing, and I love it. He's real. London real. Yeah, he's real. He's a real sense of, and I want to also do something similar in my way. And yeah.
It's fascinating because you're known for so many memes. The one-handed handstand, the planches, those short videos on YouTube. And we talked about this last time because it's like, I think you said something like, I infect you with the virus and then you get the message. And so in a weird way, it's frustrating for you because people are like, oh, Ido, he's that guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it proliferates your message to
Yeah.
the right people.
It's more accessible, it's powerful, it opens the door for a lot of people. And then you have to start the real process of education of what we are really doing here. One-arm handstand is the media captured it. You know, I did it, I played that game. I was that slut, you know. I was using those tools to promote my ideas. But in my real practice, in my real approach with my students, it was just certain pieces of our practice. Very similar thing happened to the parkour world, where the media took on these huge jumps, but it's a very small piece of the practice. It's a very small piece. So yeah, we used it, and we cannot bitch and moan later on for being misunderstood. We just have to educate. And the ones who came into the door, yeah, just educate them.
Last time we were here, we spoke afterwards, and I went away thinking, you know, Ido is a passionate man, and you had conflict in you because I feel like you want to get this message out there, but it has to be done the Ido's way, you know, and like you don't want to sell out, you don't want to take that sponsorship, it just cannot be done that way, and there's something I find really attractive about people that are conflicted because it means they care about what they're doing. Sometimes so much so that it consumes their life. Is this an accurate description of you or you a year ago?
I think so, yeah. I'm becoming more and more comfortable with, I'm free. I'm free in many ways to make the right choices for me. So I'm less conflicted. I'm not being attracted or seduced so easily. But it's still a challenge in other areas, you know. attention and all kinds of things. But it's definitely a big piece of, like, this is my legacy. This is my name is connected to it. I want to do it right. I want to do it in a genuine way. I want to do it in a way that I feel I can stand behind it, and for many years to come, and my whole life is, and I want to do it in the right way for other people as well, to not promote, something I don't believe in.
You're 35 now. 55-year-old Ido. Is he here in this chair on the same tour of Europe and Asia and America in 20 years? What's he doing? What does IdoPortal.com look like?
Probably still traveling. I'm traveling a lot less than before. I'm doing it in a good way, but I'm still all over, in all continents pretty much, and moving around. I enjoy that. I love this nomad thing that makes you constantly adaptability. This, okay, new chair, spill myself in, take the form. London, like getting here, okay, subways, this, that, okay. It keeps you engaged, and you're not too comfortable, and you don't sink into, old age. So this is one thing, and definitely the movement thing. It's very interesting for me. I think about it often, how will it be? And I've had in the last movement camp, I brought along as one of the guests and lecturer a guy named Stephen Jepson. He's 74 years old, and he's a mover. He's, juggling 3 balls, standing on a roller bola, and throwing and catching things. He had a very viral video on YouTube called "Never Leave the Playground." And I saw a little bit of a glimpse. What does it mean to be practicing movement in this age? But it's not my style. I love what he's doing. I respect a lot of it, but it's related to certain areas in movement. I would like to do something even more diverse. And it's interesting.
Do you think how you're going to be moving when you're 74? How will you be moving different?
Smarter, for sure.
What do you mean by that? Do you do things that are not smart now? Do you take chances on things that can hurt you?
Not so much. No, I was always the coward.
You said that last time, you're a coward. You don't seem like a coward.
Well, I don't take... I've seen people take risks, I don't take big risks. I take calculated risks. I do a lot of stuff that might seem crazy for people, like, but for me, it's not dangerous. It's calculated risk. So I keep my body is, better than I was 16. I'm not one of those guys that you will discover the problem with a few hours. You'll see tomorrow. It's like you'll discover, it's like, yeah, I'm doing great. Everything is great. After a few hours, you start to see, oh, you're not doing so great, because you cannot spend time like an hour squatting down and moving around in low gait. Your joints are achy, and you brush your knees, and your shoulder is bothering you, and you have weakness. You cannot place weight on your hands for a long period of time. So I don't have almost anything. I kept my body in very, very good shape, and I saved it, all the unnecessary dangers. I took risks. They were calculated. I enjoyed dipping in the chaos, taking that bulletproofing effect of it, but not doing too much. It's very important. You do a little bit of boxing, maybe some sparring here or there, and then step out. Because if you continue, you're going to pay the price the rest of your life. It's going to be there. If you're going to be competitive, you're going to pay a price. BJJ people, let's look around, herniated discs, fingers, swollen fingers, cauliflower ears, knee problems, hips. But if you do it in the right way, in the right dosages, you dip into the chaos, you get the knowledge, you get the good effects, and then you move on and you still maintain that with you. So that is what I've been doing, and I've been healing my body from all the injuries that I did have into using movement, the biggest healer out there. And I hope I can continue and maintain that while still practicing so much because I love it, and continuing to develop myself so much because that's the one thing that is constant in my life, and I love it.
You're known as a ruthless instructor. Have you gone softer over the years? Should I expect that tomorrow? Like you said, you sounds like you're going to put us through all these positions, and I think you were alluding to, yeah, you might think you have it for the first 15 minutes, but after an hour or two, if something's not right in your body, you're going to feel it, right? So you're pushing people to pain limits.
Sometimes, yeah. I like to redefine the relationship with pain, and it's important for us. We've been oversensitized by our culture, practices. We're inside this cotton, and we can't take, 10 degrees up, it's too hot. 10 degrees down, it's too cold.
People are not made of sugar, right?
Yeah, we're never satisfied. We're never satisfied. It's a ridiculous state. It's like, yeah, we talk about the weather, yeah, it's a bit too cold today. You rarely hear it's perfect. And even if you hear it, it's not for a long time. So I like to redefine it. I'm not a ruthless person. I'm very emphatic in the way that, because I felt those things. But I also provide a certain type of support that might be viewed as ruthless, and it's exactly the opposite. It's an emphatic way to look at things, where I'm saying to people, it's not a big deal. Breathe through it. Pain will come. We don't stop. And reestablish a healthier relationship with it. Pain is not as simplistic as people put out it to be. Pain is a signal telling you to move away from it. It's far from it. The pain science has been completely changing. We are changing our way, how we look at pain and pain feedback loops and all this stuff. And yeah, it's a very complex phenomenon.
Right. And we're probably doing it, a disservice because we use one word, pain. And yet I'm sure you have felt so many different kinds of pain at so many different levels.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your prediction of the fight? Pain. Clever Lane. They just gave him one word, So it's too simplistic. It's not even a good word because it's coming from our mechanoreceptors. It's not coming from pain receptors. We're changing the way that we look at it. It's some signals, and we put it into context. We make it pain, right, by defining it. So we have to reestablish it, and we have to work with it. I'm not saying ignore it. There is a lot of information there. Any information, don't ignore information. Information is good. That's why you have input systems, and you are, in a way, information and input. You are your input. No input, you have nothing. Yeah, so that's the thing that might look to some people as ruthless or something, because I'm not phased out by pain. Many people, say, oh, I have pain here. Stop, rest on the side, don't do it. And I sometimes want to investigate that with that person. Let's dive in here and let's look at this pain. What is that exactly? And what can we learn from it? And I don't stop maybe directly. Maybe I'll stop at a certain point, but maybe not right away. Because that fortifies the pain, that closes it inside this palace, and now you cannot access that point. It's a problem in and of its own.
Do you get emotional people in your workshops? Do people cry? Do people get angry with you? Do people storm out?
Never stormed out. Maybe it happened, I don't know, and I wasn't aware. Never stormed out. I think people get angry and directly feel other emotions coming up as well. So it kind of balances it out. And I'm trying to do that. I'm making people angry, but I'm also providing some support there directly and letting them deal with that anger in a better way. And people get emotional, people burst out crying, people send, messages, bring letters to the second day, send me emails, changed my life, saved my life. I just received an email just 3 days ago. Somebody watched the first London Real interview. He had very, very bad upbringing. Parents died early on. He went between foster families, eventually reached his grandparents in the age of 16. After 2 years, they got dementia. As a 16-year-old person, he had to take care of them. Like all of his life went down this, super depressed. And then one day he saw this clip. And just like, boom, meaning, movement. Yeah, that's something that he connected with, in that moment. It changed life. So, these emotions are part of the paradigm shift. They are, it's hard. You meet some demons, you meet some things maybe you didn't want to hear. You're very good with it. You've dug into your demons before using all kinds of approaches and ways. So I think you will find this interesting for sure.
It'll be interesting because I dug into them, but it's funny when you go and do it in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or in a fighting context, everything is in a fighting context. So you kind of know there's an ultimate aim, and it's usually an aggressive aim. And so as opposed to what I think you're going to challenge me with, which is different, patterns and physical emotions that I'm not going to understand. Like, why is Ido asking me to do this? In a fight class, you kind of know why, which probably makes it less interesting to a certain extent.
I give it certain context, and I give it certain, but ultimately it's about revealing that concealed truth. It's about bringing this awareness inside there. Anyways, anything that you do, has no value or truth in it unless it sheds new awareness in. It's like no activity has any intrinsic value. It's Ramdas unless it sheds light of awareness. And the movement thing is through the body, the first medium, directly into that thing. The yogis knew it. All these traditional cultures, they were mind-body. They were working through the body. It's very nice to think we can, just sit and do but we discover more and more it doesn't quite work like that. The Descartesian error, this disconnect, the mind and the body, they're connected, the feedback loops with the heart, with the stomach, gut feelings, neurotransmitters being sent everywhere. You're not going to make it without your body. Very few people have the ability to make it without their body. It's possible. It's a huge, huge task, and you might need certain gifts, specific upbringing, or to be able to do that. But I think most people can, through the skin, approach quicker.
And like for the last 200 years, we've been taught that it all happens here, right? And it's all about the knowledge gain. You should figure things out and not feel things from your body. And now we're knowing more that the gut is always telling us messages, and the body's always telling us things that we've kind of chosen to ignore, traditionally.
Yeah. Even in those 200 years, there were still some saints trying to give the right message, trying to promote this message and not ignoring the body completely.
Right. How does Ido Portal relax without moving?
Without moving?
Yeah.
Well, it can be a lot of things. It's mostly related to movement. Like still, my relaxation will be through a gate of movement.
Okay.
It's very hard not to move. You're sleeping, you're moving, you're doing, the chemistry is moving constantly. We are moving. We're not moving, we're done. It's death. This is the big spectrum. This is the big, you stop moving, you die. You move, you increase life force.
Right.
But if you're referring to the more traditional point of view on movement, is I will do a lot of research, working through my curiosity. So I will devote a lot of time to reading, to researching, to getting new ideas in and trying to refeed, my practices through that. I would meditate. I meditate more and more with the years that pass. I started over a decade ago, but did not give it the same value as I do these days, and did not realize, what it holds inside of it.
Morning practice, nighttime practice, long periods of time?
all over the day. It can be in the end of my first session, which I will do a little bit of meditation, all kinds of ways. It can be in the end of the full day. It can be in the middle, in between the breaks, and different types of practices, different types of meditations. Yeah. I had this moment a few years ago, and it really kind of started to bubble up in the last year, where I felt nothing. I feel nothing. I don't feel anything. It's done. I don't feel anything. The bigger the things I do, it's like the less I feel them. Like huge events, like changing people's lives, reading emails, like that. People close, I can't feel anything. It loses all the meaning, There is a leakage somewhere of meaning, and then I realized I need to stop. I have to stop. And it happened intuitively. I started to meditate. I started to stop. And it directly released me a little bit. And then I dived into it very, very deeply lately. And just had some realizations and about awareness, about its importance. And now I interlace it into my sessions and regularly.
And the warning signal was because these big things weren't affecting you in a way that normally they would have. And so you said, maybe I need to take some time and go ground myself in meditation.
They were not affecting me at all. They were not for the good, not for the bad, nothing. I in one of my meditative states, the deepest one, I had this thing come to me, and I thought, emotional flexibility. This term just appeared to me, I lost my emotional flexibility. I had no emotions, nothing's happening. Almost like a complete blank, like I'm doing this crazy stuff, but it just washes over me. I don't gain anything from it.
Right.
And I had to mobilize.
Because that's not healthy, right? Not having emotion is not healthy.
Yeah. No, it's not healthy. You put a title on it, another title like that's not healthy, that's healthy. But sure. It's more about it's not aware. It's not aware. Good or bad, that's another title. That's down the road. But aware is the first thing. It's like no awareness. I don't know this. I'm not aware of what's happening to me. I'm sitting here in an interview and I want to be here with you doing this thing. I don't want to be in my thoughts somewhere else or let it wash over me. Yeah, another V on my calendar or whatever. And that takes stopping regularly. You have to stop and you have to empty, to mobilize certain areas, to let certain things sink, etc. And the other realizations, the deeper ones, but they are a bonus.
Okay. I saw your pictures of China. You went there, I think, after you were here last year, and you had a bunch of realizations of what it was just like to be there. And I think you realized that the people there are very tough because they live in, some would say, a toxic environment, and yet they still have resolve. And you were noticing these things, and you said in the shitstorm that is China, I found a day of peace or a realization here. What did you learn from that trip?
Oh, I learned so much. It's a different universe almost for us, coming from a Western perspective. It starts with the language, which the biggest thing is the words don't mean one thing. It's a huge, huge change. It's a huge difference. When a word is being given out, you have to absorb. It's like coffee. It has all these tastes inside of it. But we are just drinking this oxidized, dark roast with no, one taste. So you have to develop the palate to understand their meaning, the words, and the translations must be requested again and again and again until you get a few for you to start to realize what it means. And just seeing, how people live in very, very difficult things for us, like the toxicity and the pollution and the food, which is terrible in these rural areas, in these industrial cities. And and still finding a lot of similarities, still human things, and kind of asking yourself, oh, this is a human thing, must be, because it's still here, just like back home. What is coming out of our DNA, and what is like conditioned and social more. Was an interesting trip, definitely hardcore.
You did a lot of training.
A lot of training, very monotonous training. Nobody tries to gratify you with training there. It's like you're getting a task. Mostly you'll get 1 or 2 exercises or tasks a day. And 8, 9, 10 hours, do those 2 drills. It's more difficult here than even in the body. It's hard on the body, but it's difficult here. The first day I was there, I saw this girl, came for her first ever class in this martial art facility. There is some of the national Sanda people, there is some people from the military in China training there, and somebody taught her how to jab and put her on the bag. And Brian, I swear to God, 2 hours she was jabbing non-stop because nobody stopped her. They just taught her how to jab, and she was just a girl from the street, like first class. But you could see the type of, mind, just like jabbing 2 hours straight. No change, no wiping the sweat, no nothing. And just after 2 hours, okay, come back next time.
So that's something in the culture. So when they're assigned to something like that, that's what they do.
Yeah, I don't, China, huge population. I don't want to put titles on the culture, but that's what I saw there specifically in this place. And it's something that I recognized again and again there. Yeah. Eat bitter, they say in martial arts. Can you eat bitter?
Okay.
First, they make you eat bitter, because if you cannot pass this, we can't teach you anything of true importance. Some of the Chinese, they say, first 5 years, pain. After, vacation. First 5 years is like the basics, getting the basics done. It's like pain. A lot of practice.
What else do you learn from? What are your other favorite places to go? Where's home for you? Is it Israel?
I'm moving around so much. So I spent some time in Europe, I spent some time in Israel, I spent some time in Australia and Asia. I'm still don't really have a home, moving around the whole time. But other places all over. Every place has its, very interesting stuff. When I was younger, I went to Russia many times and was very interested in the physical culture and this type of, and the culture in general. I have many friends, Russian friends, who are still like very good friends, and we have very good connection.
You said it's very similar to Israeli culture as the no bullshit culture in Russia.
Yeah.
Is that what you said when you first got there? Or
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's very non-bullshit. It's in your face. It can be rude, different rudeness, but yeah, 91, we were in school. All of a sudden, these kids came. Who are these kids? They can't speak Hebrew, and they grew up with us. It was like 1 million people coming into a 5 million people country, and we grew up together. So we are very Russian also. We were very affected by them. And we created friendships, and we learned, never to say a bad word about the mother of some ethnic groups. And we learned, we wrestled together, we fought together, we made friends together. I had many good friends I grew up with from Georgia, from Russia, from all over Azerbaijan, and they brought a lot of knowledge of sports, of boxing, a lot of culture, a lot of music, a lot of art. And they still stayed very close within themselves, and still their children and grandchildren still speak Russian in Israel. They can speak Hebrew, but they still speak fluent Russian as if they were born in Russia and Soviet Union countries. Their culture was so powerful compared to this 50, 60-year-old country that they maintained their identity very strongly. They had their ghettos, supermarkets. It's written in Russian.
Wow. Does Ido Portal start a family anytime in the future?
Not so sure about that. It's not on the map. It's not on the map.
But you love things that aren't on the map, right?
True, it might get on the map. It might
Right.
get suddenly on the map, but it's not on the map. Yeah, right now I'm way too occupied with my, self-egoistic development and internal world, to bring, another person into this world. And also I'm not so sure about this world in general, so it supports that kind of direction.
What aren't you sure about in this world? Are we going in the wrong direction?
I think we know that we're going in very bad direction in many ways, and in other ways we're going in good directions. But yeah, it's a complex reality to bring a child into. It's not. I don't know what will be. What will be here when I'm 55, like you said. Yeah. Hopefully, technology will enable us to change our mindsets. I don't think that technology will save us, as many hope. I think it might enable us to change our mindsets in a deep enough level, Yeah.
And what directions are we going in that are wrong, do you think, as a world? Is it from a humanity standpoint or resources or?
We're not becoming more aware. It's what we said. We are moving away from awareness, Some farmer, thousands of years ago was more aware than a broker in New York. And that creates a whole host of other problems which are children of that original problem. Because when you're not aware, you start to hurt, destroy. You don't notice. It's not the evil as people treat it, the evilness of, it's more lack of awareness.
Yeah.
It's Viktor Frankl, like the opposite of love is indifference. It's indifferent, unaware. Yeah, there are evil forces out there, but not the biggest evil force. The biggest one is this lack of awareness.
You mentioned Conor McGregor in mixed martial arts. We talked about the UFC a bit last time, and I mentioned Conor, funny enough, and that was before he became a big star. This was like 14 months ago. But it's been fascinating to watch him and the way he moves. Like you said, he's not afraid to give his back up. And I've watched him closely because along with his style comes a bravado and a way of speaking that's just really, I don't think Ali was even at the level Conor's at. So, but I've watched his movement aside from the talk, and it's fascinating to see, especially when he goes up against, career-defining moments, the way he stays relaxed and stays moving and gives his back up and just seems to kind of be very in the moment. And, we both know from the, MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu backgrounds that there's these memes that you build up to where you don't even know you're doing them, but you are actually rigid in what should be a fluid environment. Do you watch him? Do you get inspired by him?
Yeah, I love it. I love his stuff. I love his fights. I love his point of view. I love how he took a lot of my ideas and applied it in his field and mentioned a few times.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, well, very cool. What kind of things?
I would love to meet him and do some work with him. I think he's taking this generalist movement perspective inside fighting, and is definitely applying that, and there is so much you can do with it, because he's not, most fighters are standing there with their English or their Russian or their Portuguese, their language, and they're waiting for you to ask them this question. But all of a sudden you come up with some, and there is no answer for that, specifically inside the techniques that you were taught. There is no specific technique to match that, and that's where he shines. By asking those questions and by answering these unformed, mutated, but beautiful answers, it's a true expression. He's doing the Bruce Lee thing in many ways, the art of expressing the human body. He is the genuine self. Yeah, you can say for good or for bad, but the style, the actions, he is bringing something very genuine. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see his opponents not being able to, like you said, answer the question because they don't know what language.
They don't know what is that?
Right.
What even is that? And he is contributing something to the collective knowledge by bringing in his unique self and building on top of the work of others, but bringing something genuine, and I appreciate it. And I'll tell you something else that I appreciate. I appreciate loudmouths. I appreciate them. They can directly shine a mirror in your face that reflects your own ego and of course create a lot of reactions with people. But if you get over that, you understand that he's a risk taker. Loudmouths are putting it out there and taking huge risks. And yeah, just I appreciate it. He's confident, but more than that, as confident as you are, you have to either do it or do not. And he's definitely doing it. He's going for it. Yeah. He's. There is a lot of good stuff in the movement that is happening. I see that he's taking some patterns and he's mentioning some terms that I've been using regularly in interviews, and I am very honored to see that he's getting that information. And
what kind of practices did he adopt from you, or what kind of?
I saw some patterns of movement on the floor that I played with, and they became kind of known through my work and the type of mobility work that I'm doing, which is very specific and to how I look at things, and ideas about movement and about talking about movement and general movement and the art of the human body movement. What does he mean? He means this language. This is an arm. And if I don't perceive this arm as punch, elbow, but I perceive it as an arm, I am much more able to respond to what this arm can produce than through the technical language perspective. This principle approach is like a master key. It opens any door, while the other opponent is fumbling around with a bunch of keys trying to find the right key for the door. It's a principle superior to technique. Principles much higher than technique. They produce techniques instantly, whenever you need them. What do I need right now? I just make it.
And he was talking about movement 2 years ago. A lot of people started talking about movement after you started talking about it. We live in a world of intellectual property and patents and trademarks, but you can't do any of that. Or is that a game that's really not worth fighting? Because that can drive you crazy, can't it? You talk about practices and routines. I've even seen things that people grab from you, and I'm not even looking. How do you deal with that as a person who creates?
Sometimes it penetrates the armor and can hurt and can ignite. Other times you laugh it off. I am mostly not impressed by unoriginal thinking and unethical use of others' ideas. Like, I've used many ideas just talking to you now, and I made it a point to mention the authors, whether they're known or not known, or these are things that are important for me. So, yeah, I just, sometimes I deal with it better, sometimes worse. With the time, I'm playing the game a little bit better, I think. I hope.
You mentioned you like Connor being a loudmouth. You were a loudmouth when you were younger, and maybe still are, I hope. Has that changed? And do you pride yourself in being that loudmouth? Because those are the guys that take the risks.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm standing where I'm standing right now, and because of being a loudmouth, and saying things as they are and putting some pepper on it, and and of course also I really believe in the intelligence of the audience. I don't degrade the intelligence of the audience. I will use sarcasm, or even if it will be misunderstood by few, because I believe it upgrades the audience. It pulls it up with you, your ideas and everything. And if not, they're not worth it. And they need to climb up more rungs on the ladder to reach the place where you're talking or saying, or maybe it's not rungs up the ladder, it's laterally, maybe it's a different place. It's not better or worse, it's just a different place. So being a loudmouth and having humor and, you know, not being politically correct all the time and you know, it's rolling with the punches and having all this is very real for me. It's very important. I'm not perfect, I'm a human being, I have white hair and wrinkles, and I have, you know, I wake up sometimes on the left side and sometimes on the right side. And it's something I want to remain connected to. Don't want to present some picture that, you know, is not real.
I always ask everyone here a few questions about success, and I was wondering if you could answer just a few. And the one that I want to ask you more than anything is, when you think of the word successful, who comes to mind? These success secrets are only available on the London Real Academy. Become a member and get access to live shows, exclusive courses, my webinars, bonus content, meetups, live events, an amazing community, and much, much more. Now back to the rest of the show. One of your closest students is here with you on the trip, Odelia. Is that right?
Yeah.
One of your maybe disciples, you might be. How would she describe Ido to me?
That would be interesting. I have no idea, actually, after all these years. She's not only a student and disciple, she's also my teacher in many ways, and she's one of the closest people to me, you know, ever. And but it's very interesting, actually, what she would say. I think she would say something about my strength right off the bat, not physical strength, about my support, because I'm holding on people, I'm supporting a lot of people, the close people to me. And we went through a lot of stuff together. You know, she went through a car accident, she lost a kidney, she broke her back, she went through 3 knee surgeries.
That your sister performed.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so I'm just like family, you know. I'm very much about the family. It's family. If it's not family, we either didn't develop it well enough, or we can't really do a lot of crazy stuff yet together. You know, as a tribe, it must become this family thing, and that's how I do things. You know, I know that many people don't do it like this. They do it through very far away things, but I don't want to live my life like this. I want to touch people. I don't want to live in a bubble, disconnected, alone. So that's how I do things, great things. Without this, I cannot do much great things. I can support, I can help, you will get this trick, that party trick, but to really absorb yourself in the movement practice, it goes deeper.
How does that work with her the last few years? I mean, you talk about she teaches you things, you teach her things. I mean, how would you describe that to someone?
It's a real student-disciple relationship, teacher-disciple relationship. Like, I'm leading the process in many ways, but I'm also pushing for individual, squeezing out of them, you know, individual expressions and self-research and work alone and cultivating it. I'm older than these close students, and if I'm not older by, you know, almost a decade, then I'm much, much older in the experience, in the practice. I have also older students that are coming in, but this 20 years of practice that I have is just like making it seem so. And we're just researching together. We dive into fields. We're practicing every day. We're meeting up every day, and we just start to practice. And I lead some form of practice, and then, you know, I send them into doing some things and researching and trying to see what happens. And then maybe they come with insights and they develop pieces, and I look at it and say, no, that's shit. You know, and I say, oh, this is great. Show me again. Do this. Let's do this. Okay, change this up. Let's do this. So I'm kind of leading from a little bit experience that I have, and also my personal orientations, because I just love certain things, and I'm, in that case, the leader. Yeah.
Do you write all this stuff down, or is it all in the brain?
Some I write, some is in the brain. Yeah. The writing thing is also a trap. I try not to get into it. I used to like try to document everything, and it just doesn't quite work well. And sometimes it doesn't allow you're just spending a lot of time doing that instead of sitting and developing the ideas, like chewing up the ideas in your mind.
Right.
So I do both.
When's the book coming out?
Not sure yet. Yeah. I'm still working on the one page, one page that I will be forever satisfied with. When I get that, I'll get to the second page, etc.
So you have been writing.
I'm writing some stuff down, and I'm sure I'm going to put some book that I'm not fully complete with forever, but I'll put it out there. At a certain point, I will say, okay, it reached certain maturity. It's not perfect, will never be. It's enough for me to put it out there and spread certain seeds that I can only do through a book in that form. Yeah, but right now it's more about, I want this connection. I want to touch people. I want to work with them. Touch physically and touch with my ideas. And that takes like very, very personal contact,
How many people will you touch physically in the next year?
Thousands. Yeah. All of my teachers received the instruction, touch every student physically during the weekend. Everyone must receive at least like way to go, or let me show you, move the hand like this. This contact, super important. And it's another thing that is not in our culture so much. And, it's getting lost, and it's important for us to bring it back.
It's almost, it's like the movie Fight Club. Everyone has they get to where they are and they crave this tribal, touching realness of what we've lost. Although everyone isolates themselves, including I'm guilty of this too, to where you don't have to do that, especially with people you don't know. And yet then we find ourselves
doing it.
Yeah, going into a, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practice, which is basically the same thing.
Yeah, we cannot disconnect from certain things, You cannot suppress certain things. We've tried, we've created like crazy ideas in our culture and our social, systems, but some things cannot get, you'll die. If you don't get touched for enough time, you'll die in pain. And we are coming from there. It's impossible. No culture will survive. Of course, it's obvious. Not only touch, put a penis inside a vagina. It's like, this stuff has to happen on so many different layers. Fighting together, training together, cubs of lions, playing together so one day they can protect and can do, and all kinds of physical contact, care, support. Another thing that happened because of, we took a different angle, sexual harassments and stuff. People stopped touching altogether, and it created a new problem. We were not expecting it, but it created a huge new problem. So I'm more up for like establishing the boundaries before we start to work, and then going to work. But if I can't touch you, can't work with you.
Right. You mentioned sex. You talk about movement. Sex is a big part of human movement. Do you talk about it much? Do you have ideas about it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very connected with movement and, Desmond Morris' work, original thinking about like Paleolithic kind of perspectives of sexual behavior and movement. And Moshe Feldenkrais talked about it. And a lot of movement perspective is connected with sex. It's mentioned here and there. It's definitely a movement practice, a human movement practice that contains a lot of good movement, like a lot of good stuff happening inside there for your joints, for your spine, for hormonal systems, for all kinds of things. Very interesting. There is a lot of traditional, ancient, thousands of years old knowledge about it, and there is also new pieces of information. Orientations, fetishes, all of this stuff is very connected to movement and to our society, to our culture. There is so much to be said about it.
That's the second book, maybe.
Maybe.
I always ask everyone here a couple questions right at the end. And I asked you last time, I'm going to ask you again. And a few people wanted me to ask you. If you could go back to that young Ido in his teens, and with all the knowledge you have now, tell him something or give him some direction, what would you tell him?
Awareness. Do everything as you did, continue on, continue doing your stuff, but also stop, appreciate, practice the awareness. Practice. Don't expect the awareness to work. Don't expect it to be. You will not, you will not iron the water into quiet water. The wavy water must be observed to be calmed down. You have to observe it, and you have to. That's it. Because I was expecting it to work, and it didn't work. I was practicing my meditation. I was doing stuff. It didn't work. I got very little, and then I realized, no, it is working. I just need to give it a chance to work. I have to observe the water for the waves to come down and for something else to emerge. And it's practice, it's training like anything else. And there you don't get immediate gratification. And that's very important. And that's something that I could have practiced earlier.
Right. Be more aware and listen, because the message is there.
Yeah.
Best advice you've ever received over the years? Although you don't mention mentors very often, but you mentioned that capoeira gentleman that brought capoeira to Israel, but you don't talk about mentors per se or people. But
I was not mentored in my field. I was mentored in other fields. Right. And those teachers are out there. My dance teacher was my partner, Shai Faran, who exposed me to improvisation and work. My mother, who taught me so much. She's a therapist and she worked with narrative therapy and psychologist. My first, Hong Kyun teacher, Chinese martial arts, Udira Anand, from a very young age, he instilled in me all kinds of stuff that is part of me until today. Capoeira teacher, first capoeira teacher, and my capoeira master, all these teachers are super important. And I got a lot of advice, but very hard to pinpoint one piece of advice. Definitely it was something probably coming from my mother. Because my mother was way ahead of the curve with all this stuff compared to me, the awareness, and she's practicing a lot of this stuff. Buddhism and looking into Taoism, and she went through a course in Israel that is called The Last Year of My Life. It's basically a year of focusing as if this is the last year of your life. And this is super interesting, kind of like traditional practices from Zen Buddhism, Japanese, Musashi, meditating on your death every day, etc. Today is a good day to die, etc. Yeah, I didn't receive one piece of thing, but that would probably be it. He always told me, empty the cup, you brush your teeth, we have, deodorants and creams for every part of the body, but we don't take care of the soul. We don't stop to do the basic thing. You wash yourself every day, wash the inside as well. And didn't listen. And she was patient enough to observe me and let it calm down. And I came around, and today, we're very much even more connected through this observation, realizations.
Empty the cup.
Empty the cup.
Meditate on your death.
Also beneficial.
Yeah. There's so many people that are watching us right now, and they've heard what you said, and they've heard the message. They probably just heard it, though, which is what I called our last show, Just Move. But, they'll turn this off and they'll watch a movie on Netflix now on that computer, and they might not ever get to it. So, what can you tell them as far as something that can promote this kind of movement, which is not just a physical practice? I mean, this is essential in our development as a race, right? About a lot of the problems we're having now. What do you tell them? Something they can do or should do?
If there is anything inside of this stuff that is piquing your interest or calling your name in the smallest voice ever, simply pull on the string one step further. That's the one thing you can do. Educate yourself one step further. You kind of understood it, but not so much. Okay, pull, press the next link. Just continue to unravel, because you have this intuition coming in. This intuition is calling you. This intuition is wanting you to do it, but sometimes we ignore it.
I think you made me pull the string last time because I went into my muscle up era where I worked on that for like 6 months, and it must have been because of you. Because I think I told you I was bored with my physical practice, and this is great timing for you because I'm gonna be with you this weekend, and I'm probably at another crossroads in my physical practice, you know. And I mean, a lot of these things you talk about. I mean, I go and train, and I go to the gym, and I meet my trainer, and we train, and I go home, and sometimes I'm doing that bent row with 45 kgs, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Ido would not be impressed with this. You know, I'm not expressing myself. I'm not learning. I'm not challenging. Sure, it's hard. And it might be painful, a very low level, but I don't feel like I'm being better, you know. And so I think last time you helped me pull that, and I went after kind of that whole idea, studied the muscle up, and so
it gives you, I think it gives you enough for you to continue to do that. It does give you things, but when your philosophy and your practice and sensations and emotional content all meet together, it's an atomic bomb. And that's where most people are never stepping into that realm. It's like you're doing this bent over rows, I did them the same, you know, and you feel your body and you feel better and you have some elevation in metabolism and you build some muscle and it plays all kinds. But it's not sitting with your philosophy. It's far from your philosophy. You're so much more evolved in the way that you look at things. And when those two meet and they're under the same umbrella and under the same practice, it's boom.
okay. So you're gonna set off some atomic bombs for me tomorrow?
We'll try.
I'm very much looking forward to it. We're gonna have Luis, who's here, come and you know, take some footage. So we might release a few minutes of that, if that's okay with you, for people to see.
Sure.
You know, I'm going, when I get emails like that from you saying, be ready, Brian, no half-assed, I'm looking forward to it, and you know, I'm really excited about it. One thing I wanted to ask you, we had a bit of an argument, I believe, about talks and TED Talks and that kind of thing. And I wanted to get your thoughts because, you know, we were going to have our event and have a TED Talk, and, you know, we disagreed. And I think it's always good to have a healthy disagreement. And you said, Brian, you know, a regimented talk is not what I'm about. You know, I'm about more than that. And I disagreed and said, I still think that's a great kind of a communication meme, which I know you love and hate at the same time. Can you just tell me more about what you thought about that?
I didn't view it even as a disagreement, but I actually got your points. Like I really, you know, valued them and got them across. But it was more about, it's not how I want to do. It's not how I want to present the message. It has to be delivered in a certain medium. And when we're standing there and we are discussing and we are rolling around things, and I'm able to really find interesting angles, and I bounce it off of you, and you throw the ball back into me, and we thump, 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 and we have this thing. This is like so much better for me to present my ideas than sitting and designing. And I appreciate the effort. And of course, it also comes from my unwillingness to sit my ass down and to do that, because it's not enough for me to drive myself to do that, you know. Yeah, but I completely got your point across. And like, hey, man, you're lazy. This is why you don't want to do it. And you're right. It's not laziness. It's a laziness to do something that I don't feel it will rock my ideas so well as having a genuine man-to-man talk like this.
I sense it. Yeah, I think you're at your best probably when we're talking and moving. That's why this is such a counterintuitive way to show Ido Portal, because I'm not even allowing you to move. So I think that's probably your best. The next is probably when we're bouncing off ideas. And this whole TED Talk format that I was talking about for our masterminds is when you get up and present like 18 minutes of your thoughts, which is probably like the last thing that is you, because you are, let's flow, let's play, let's do this.
It's true.
And yet my argument, as I remember, was someone's going to grab your Ido meme and present it to the world, and it's going to be in this video, this piece. And so they construct your message, and I was saying this is a chance for you to construct it. So to be continued. I love a healthy debate, yeah, we'll see where that goes. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I guess I should bring what with me? An open mind? What should I come tomorrow prepared as?
There is no preparation. There is nothing. Bring your body. And yeah, that's it. Comfortable clothes. Get ready to dirty the walls, dirty the body, dirty the hands. No supporting gear. We're moving away from all this stuff. No dry fits, schmai fits. No special shoes. It's like $15 shoes. And yeah, just get ready to upgrade what's important. And work on your body, work on your mind. You'll be very tired in the end, more from listening and moving. The combination is very tiring. It's one thing that to dial in one mind state by jumping between the two and listening for long stretches of time and then moving. It's very hard, but it's good. I think you're going to enjoy it in the end.
Good. The more you describe it, it sounds like I've been hurting myself by not adopting a physical practice that's congruent with my mind, and the way my mind is curious, then my body should follow that piece.
For sure, there is a huge, and you're not the only one. I see so many. It's like there is a huge gap, and this is the time, that we're living in, where we can bring all these aspects together. Like Nassim Taleb, one of my most favorite authors. I'm going to meet him next month in Zurich, and one of my students set up a meeting, and I'm very, very excited to go meet him. And I know that he does some weightlifting and he does some fasting, but I'm sure it's just like from pure lack of time, he was unable to develop his ideas in the physical realm to the same level that I've used his great, great, great ideas, or original thinker, unique in this time. Because, of, again, focus and specialization still in my field.
Right.
So
you can teach him things.
I know I can teach him things and that would be a great honor for me from someone I've learned so much from. I just have the highest appreciation. And so there are so many such examples, great artists with no sense of, how to handle basic hygiene, or great models, amazing models who did not develop the inside and the philosophy and the mind, or great sports people who did not, take care of their basic economical situation. This is the time where we can pool and we can bring this real general quality into every aspect of our lives. What we eat, our relationships, our movement, our business, our everything.
The collective knowledge.
The collective knowledge in many ways.
I love it. As we say in London Real, it's about the journey. You are a man constantly on a journey. That's what I love about it. Thanks for coming back and seeing us. Let's do this again in a year and find out where we both are.
Sure.
All right. I look
Thank
forward.
you very much.
All right. Thanks for having me tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Ido Portal. Thank you. This week on London Real, we have adventurer, artist, and freerunner Timothy Sheaf.
For me, spirituality isn't anything to do with talking. It's nothing. It's all about action. If you grow your faith in yourself and your abilities, then fear shrinks. I want to surround myself with the right people, and I'm amazed at how many of the right people have turned up at my doorstep. No animals need to be killed on our land because we've got an abundance of fruit and vegetables and everything we need from all over the world. Are you willing to give up a bit of convenience for actually being mindful and making a decision based on spiritual beliefs? Okay, we care about the dolphins. How about you care about the cows in your own backyard? They don't deserve what they get. I've only ever messed up when my mind wasn't present. It's not about me anymore. My life isn't about me. It's about what I can offer and give back.
On Sunday, London Real presents Timothy Sheaf, Professional Kid.
Fear isn't real. Danger is real.